welcome back. We're in conversation with Kaveri Bamzai, who just come out with the latest book. It's on the three Khans and the emergence of a new India. There we have it on our screens. Thank you, Kaveri. So, Kaveri, before the break, I really want to know, you've talked a bit about the equations with each other. You know, it's on again, off again. Especially, I found the Shah Rukh Salman equation very interesting. They were the Karan Arjun. Then you talk about that famous... Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, today I have with me a very special guest. Special because she's also a friend of mine, but more importantly, for the reason of this conversation, she's come up with a very interesting book. I'm of course talking about Kaveri Bamzai, who's come up with a book called The Three Khans and the Emergence of New India. It's a very smart, clever book actually, which takes a look at the rise of the three Bollywood stars and juxtaposes them at the India at which when they first came on the screen, which was I think Rajiv Gandhi's time in 1988, and also how have they changed along with the times, how have they handled this whole identity question, the Hindu-Muslim politics, and what role do they have in the BJP's India. So Kaveri Bamzai, welcome and thank you for this conversation. We've also...
This is my opportunity to plug my book. Thank you very much for doing this, Priya.
Oh, we have actually going to put it on a sting also with the thing, so we have it with us. But also a bit about Kaveri, you know, she's been a journalist for I think over 30 years nearly, and she's was the first woman editor at India Today. She's worked with Times of India, Indian Express, and of course at the magazine India Today. Now she's a columnist and she writes for various magazines and newspapers. But Kaveri, first of all, this book and you know the reason behind writing this book and why write it now? At a time when the three Khans may be fading. I don't know. I know you've given them a lease of life, but you know, why now?
I think, Priya, it was important to record the India that they grew up in and the India that my generation grew up in. And it was important to distinguish from where we are right now. And the forces that really began in motion during the time that they began. In a way, everything that we talked about, Mandalization, Mandir, market, it really began during the Rajiv Gandhi era. And the idea was to juxtapose them as they were then and India as it emerged then in the 90s with liberalization and all the other forces that we talked about. And where we are now, where really every public act of theirs is usually subject to tremendous amount of toxic trolling and, you know, they're no longer really at the primacy of the cultural landscape that they once were. So the idea was to look at why this has happened and what has changed within us and what has changed within them, that they no longer represent us in our entirety.
Isn't the obvious answer that we are also moving towards the right? And, you know, as you said, they were a product of the Nehruvian socialism and secularism, which is now not so much in fashion anymore.
Absolutely. And these may seem very obvious answers to everyone, and they are, of course. But the idea was also to situate their movies as they were then, and how they, in a way, unconsciously also perhaps contributed to the rise of the right in a way. Because when you look at some of their movies in the mid-90s, when you look at movies like Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, when you look at Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, when you look at Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, in a way the kind of right-wing family values, a sort of creeping kind of soft Hindutva in the rituals that were sort of, you know, made almost national rituals, like the Karwa Chauth, for instance. It was never a function of Indian cinema as it became in Yash Chopra, Adi Chopra and Karan Johar movies. So in a way, they also contributed to the rise of Raj and Prem as opposites to Vijay. Amitabh Bachchan's Vijay was so anti-establishment, anti-everything, really. And he represented, I think, the anger of society against everything that was going wrong. Whereas these men, through their characters, helped us in a way to also calm down the social anxiety at that point in the 90s when so much was changing. India was modernizing, India was moving towards consumerism or materialism. And I think there was a sense that, you know, the old kind of family values would be destroyed. But they told us, they validated it, and they said, no, it's possible to be both. It's possible to wear your DKNY on your chest and yet be a good Hindu boy, a good Indian boy, a good Hindu boy. And Indian and Hindu sort of became almost the same. Although they were very much Khans, they never really played Muslim characters. Yeah, it was much later that they did that. And I think those were very conscious decisions as to why they did that.
Coming to that, which one of three do you think is the most political? One would think Aamir Khan, but I think reading from your book, the impression I got is that you think it's Shah Rukh more than Aamir who's more political. Am I right?
Yes, I think so, because I think Shah Rukh is the one who's most politically engaged as well, and he often talks about his politics, which is a politics that really is a legacy of his parents. His father did fight in the freedom struggle along with Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, and his mother was a low-level Congress worker, but she was a Congress worker, which is why she became, a magistrate. So I think there is a sense that this was a family that was very much a product of choosing to be in India and choosing to be Nehruvian. And when you look at Salman and Aamir's families, of course, they also represent very much the secular ethos. But I think Aamir is more socially aware and more, even when you see now with him trying to sort of market even a personal thing like his separation from Kiran, you see that he's trying to portray this whole idea of a blended family and conscious uncoupling. Everything that he does has a sort of social meaning to it. And I think he's the most socially aware of them, and you see it represented in all his films in the 2010s. There's Dangal, which is about female empowerment and sports. We see the kind of change that India is showing at the Olympics as well. You see it in his choice of a film like Three Idiots with, talking about the education system. So everything that he did was very socially
with a message.
Yeah, and perhaps not Thugs of Hindustan and Dhoom 3. But otherwise, I think it was very cleverly crafted to sort of keep, to represent the zeitgeist. And but Shah Rukh, I think, in private is very political. It's a tragedy that he no longer talks about politics, because every time he does, he gets into all sorts of trouble, and he's realized it's better to bury your head in the sand and let people say what they want rather than, take join issue with anything. And I think that their silence itself is a sign of the times. I think they've been bullied into silence.
Yeah, because Aamir tried to speak up, and then we all know what happened. So I think
Shah Rukh, and when you see the transformation from when he spoke up about My Name is Khan, when he was viciously trolled by the Shiv Sena, which now is the liberal darling, which is so ironic. Yeah. We all know where the Shiv Sena began, and he was viciously criticized, and there were pickets outside his home when he had said that it was perfectly acceptable for Pakistani players to play in IPL. This was him wearing the other hat as the IPL team owner, and it affected My Name is Khan. But he went from premier to premier globally, talking about the idea of him being an Indian as well as a Muslim, and how those two identities could coexist. And My Name is Khan itself was about a kind of global Muslim and the kind of troubles that, that they sort of...
also stopped at immigration for being a Khan?
Yeah, not just once, twice. And of course, he's talked about it, but in his usual self-mocking, ironic and funny way where, his favorite, at least he used to say, was that there are two kinds of Muslims. There's the bad Muslim, as Osama bin Laden, and there's this one good Muslim, that's Shah Rukh Khan. But of course, like everything, it's an exaggeration.
And of course, we all know which one is the most politically incorrect out of the three of them.
Yeah, and whose father has to, continually defend him, even at this ripe old age of 56. Every time he opens his mouth, he tends to say something that offends someone or the other. So I think, yeah, that really is the tragedy of Salman Khan.
What I like about the book also is that there are lots of anecdotes. You've of course been covering them and meeting them often, and you've seen their rise. You have your own equation with them, but there are a whole lot of anecdotes about their interpersonal relations also. But before that, Kaveri, I want to talk about that instance where Shah Rukh Khan threatened to slap you. I mean, what happened there? It's in the book, but tell us about it.
Yeah, I think the idea was that Shah Rukh has forever emulated Amitabh Bachchan, and it has been a very conscious emulation because of the fact also I think that both were outsiders and essentially from Delhi. Of course, Amitabh had that famous struggle of the first 9 films of his flopping, but even then, he never really had to struggle, really. He was always the friend, the son of the friend of Mrs. Gandhi, and everyone knew that, and he came with a recommendation from the highest authorities. And of course, he had a brief dalliance with politics as well. But Shah Rukh very consciously wanted to fill in that, to be part of that legacy. So he always tried to keep himself abreast of the 3 Khans and be more of, be part of the Bachchan legacy instead. So, of course, part of that was doing KBC, when Amitabh Bachchan and the KBC guys fell out, and I'd done a cover story for India Today talking about the tension between them, and of course Shah Rukh thought it was the most offensive story and threatened to slap me by not naming me, but threatened to slap me, and everybody knew who it was. And my boss and your boss at that time there was the India Today conclave had happened, and who was our chief guest but Mr. Bachchan, and my boss and your boss at that time asked Mr. Bachchan, so are you also going to slap Kaveri? And Mr. Bachchan, of course, looked at him the way he does and says, no, not quite. So that was that.
The gentleman.
That was my brief sort of moment of national fame. And of course, Shah Rukh has always said, and this is, typical of Shah Rukh again, that, journalists like me want to become famous by writing about famous people. I accept that totally. And this is my one moment of wanting to become famous, writing about all 3.
You want fame to the power of 3. But if I was to ask you who's your favorite Khan, I'd save that for the last. But I don't know. Will I be right in thinking it's Shah Rukh, or do you have
I suppose so, because I think he's by far the most entertaining and the most vocal, and also the most self-mocking as well as arrogant, which is a very funny combination because he's aware of his power, but he's also aware that it's transient, and he can laugh at the fact that his last few films have been utter disasters. So there's a sense that he's also perhaps because we are from Delhi, there is a sense that he is someone who sort of is very much part of the Delhi ethos, and maybe the fact that he comes from my brother's school, St. Columbus, and I went to CJM has also something to do with it. But I think there are many factors. Also, I think a highly intelligent person, though it doesn't reflect in his recent film choices, and willing to put himself out there and talk, and to actually say what he feels. Not so much.
Sorry?
Not so much now in public, but in private still.
No, what you said, his off-screen persona is perhaps even more interesting. You talk about his TED Talks and,
isn't it?
Other interactions.
Yeah, and, you think, why is this man who's obviously so intelligent and charming and articulate, why is he not able to translate that into his film persona now? And the obvious answer is, stardom tends to limit your instinct, and, the whole idea of looking over his shoulder and looking at these 2 Khans racing ahead of him with 100 crore clubs and 200 crore clubs and 300 crore clubs. And he's sort of stuck there and thinking, hello, what did I do wrong? I was supposed to be the market leader in this industry. What happened to me? So I think there's that sense. That's why I don't think you can refer to these three people without looking at the other, because their choices are very much a component of what the other was doing at that point.
I want to know, you've talked a bit about the equations with each other. It's on again, off again. Especially I found the Shah Rukh Salman equation very interesting. They were the Karan Arjun. Then you talk about that famous fight in, I think, in Olive in 2008.
Yeah.
And where are they now? So just tell us about each of them.
Yeah, well, I think where Salman and Shah Rukh have a very interesting relationship that goes back to Shah Rukh entering the film industry and really the Salim's family sort of taking him in, and Arbaz and Malaika and Suhail, becoming very friendly. And that is as the family is. It's very open-hearted, and you can drop in to Salim Khan's house and you'll get a meal for sure, and some great conversation as well. So you begin from there, and then you go on to sort of on again, off again relationship. He does Karan Arjun. Salman does a bit role in Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, which is a really lovely cameo. But then, of course, comes this famous fight, which happens over Aishwarya. The antecedents of this were in Chalte Chalte, because Shah Rukh had to drop Aishwarya from that film because of the incident that Salman created. I mean, he really made a mess of things on set. And he had to drop her from the film. And yet now, when you see them, they're in a way aiding each other and trying to sort of lengthen each other's careers, because when Pathaan comes out, which is Shah Rukh's sort of comeback film with Yash Raj, the last 30 minutes of it will have a cameo by Tiger, which is Salman Khan's franchise. So it is obviously Yash Raj trying to prolong the careers of these two superstars as well, creating a franchise, creating a sort of superhero Marvel universe where maybe a Pathaan will appear in Tiger 3 and a Tiger will appear in Pathaan 2, whatever. So it's a very interesting collaboration, which I think is entirely career-driven. But that's also Salman, Salman has this, which I call the Salman Khan employment scheme, for friends and relatives and people in trouble, whether it's Suraj Pancholi or his brother-in-law, or, he likes to be the big brother, the bhai, who sort of reaches out to people when they're in trouble. So it may well be Salman's way of showing Shah Rukh his place, that, ultimately, Tiger had to appear in Pathaan too, for Pathaan to do well. We'll know soon enough when Pathaan releases. Aamir and Salman have had a very good relationship, but that dates back to the period when Aamir was going through his first divorce, and Salman, by way of sharing his drink with him, and as Aamir would say, he would drink one Bacardi a day. This is Aamir, not Salman. Salman, I think, is used to drinking one Bacardi a day, and one Bacardi, I mean one Bacardi bottle a day. So it dates back to that time, and they became quite close, and I think that was a period where Aamir and Salman really bonded. So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic. But Aamir and Shah Rukh always had a rivalry. It's never been a close friendship. They will, of course, get together when when there was trouble with the industry versus the exhibitors. They got together and spoke up for the industry together. But it's not exactly a friendship. It's more sort of healthy respect for each other, sometimes bordering on mocking each other. Each of them has done that in public, and very happily so. But the real friendship, I think, is between Aamir and Salman. That's a very interesting friendship, and that survived.
That's interesting, yeah. Because I want to know how the equations fall out and the reasons behind it.
Yeah, it's something or the other happens. Somebody says something about, I mean, that fight, famous fight at Olive was all about what Shah Rukh said about Aishwarya, and that was it, you know. Then they had to literally be separated by each other's families. So that became a very ugly phase in their relationship. And I think that also, I firmly believe, spurred on one of the reasons that Salman sort of pulled up his socks and became more serious about his career was very much because of that. Because he was till then considered a bit of a write-off, and somebody whose career was really going downhill until Wanted happened and Das Ka Dam happened, and suddenly people realized, oh, this man is actually quite funny, apart from being sort of a
muscle man,
a little pocket Hercules, as everyone called him. He's actually quite funny, and I think that also gave him confidence to be himself. And he's, while he may not be the brightest bulb on the planet, he's quite entertaining in his, in his spontaneous way. And you see Big Boss and, Das Ka Dam, he's being himself. Obnoxious.
And there was also the competition. Sorry, what did you say?
Sometimes obnoxious, but that's his style. I mean, he's again, I don't think he's ever heard of the word feminism.
He's proud of it. No, there was also that competition between him and Shah Rukh, was KBC versus Das Ka Dam. And,
of course. Because here was Salman, the most unlikely Khan of them, having an enormously successful television career. And here was Shah Rukh, who's the original television star, really struggling with television, whether it was KBC or Panchvi Paas. Everything has been a disaster. Even TED Talks has been a limited success, So it was quite ironic that Shah Rukh, who began in television and who was so beloved as in Fauji, has really struggled with doing reality shows and being himself again, so charming and intelligent, but it just doesn't work on television. Perhaps I think he's a little too intelligent, perhaps, for mass market television. He needs a kind of hothouse atmosphere, maybe a streaming show where he can just, have a conversation with Dave Letterman or somebody like that. And that's where he is his best self.
Shah Rukh, if you are listening, that's some career advice for you. But
advice.
Not some career advice. Okay. But talking about equations, him and Karan Johar also, you write about how when they fell out and how, they just met at a premiere and they met up again, made up again. I
think, it's also this whole idea that, people in Bollywood work in particular camps and cliques. And, I think the big issue at that point was Shah Rukh's friendship, or whatever you want to call it, with Priyanka Chopra, which he addressed, which he's publicly addressed, but rumors still abound. And there was a kind of social ostracism of Priyanka Chopra, literally, which was again orchestrated by Karan Johar, who is quite adept at orchestrating such things. And until Kangana Ranaut called him out on Coffee with Karan, and she actually spoke up about this whole idea of him being the high priest of nepotism and him creating these cliques. But sometimes cliques and camps are also the result of people being comfortable working with each other. Right. So here was someone, Karan Johar, who began his career because Shah Rukh told him, why don't you become a director? So Shah Rukh was always somewhat like an older brother and like, an older friend and an advisor to him. So when a break happens for whatever reason, and I believe it happened because of his friendship with Priyanka, I think that becomes quite sad, because you do have a body of work to show, and you do have a body of work where he has allowed Shah Rukh also to grow into the older statesman, the older a person in the frame. When you see Kal Ho Na Ho, which he produced in direct, that was really the moment when you realize that Shah Rukh could no longer perhaps play the romantic hero. He could also graduate to something more. And then you saw that in the film with Rani Mukherjee and Abhishek, which whose name escapes me now, the one that was shot in New York. So where he played Dave, the cynical football star, and he hated playing it, but that was clearly a move again from Karan to age Shah Rukh gracefully, So these are very interesting relationships, and I think they have a break sometimes, but people come back because they're comfortable working with each other. Look at Yash Raj and Shah Rukh. Yash Chopra's last film was with him because again, Yash Chopra is the man who gave him Dar, which Aamir didn't do, ironically, and which made Shah Rukh's career. So these relationships have gone on for so long, and their children, Adi Chopra in a way inherited the relationship from his father, and Karan also inherited a relationship from Yash Chopra. Yeah.
Okay. Now, last question, because now we're out of time, is the future. Where do you see? Because as you say, now the big screen is no longer there. There's a whole lot of streaming apps, small screen. You have new names on Nawazuddin Siddiqui, this Ayushmann Khurrana, and Ranbir Kapoor. So where are these guys going to fit in this new scenario?
Well, I think that they'll surprise us if they listen to their gut, if they listen to their instinct, if they start choosing films that are based on stories rather than on themselves. I think they will do that because they have to. There's only so many photocopies of Radhe and Prem and and Tiger that Salman can play. Shah Rukh as a romantic hero is not aging very well. He has to do something else, play more character roles. Aamir has to a surprising choice to make a remake of Forrest Gump. I would have thought that he would have gone on with something more original. But again, I'm sure he'll make it his own and make it like one of those epic movies, which of course Forrest Gump is, but in an Indian version. So I think they have to start listening to their instincts, the instincts that gave them the big turning points in their careers. And that's why sorry to plug my cover again, but quickly, that's why I've chosen these three films very, carefully. I felt Dabangg was the turning point for Salman, so I chose that. A movie where he decided that he had to do something different, took a huge risk. Lagan, which again was an enormous risk at that point in 2001 for Aamir, and DDLJ, which still remains Shah Rukh's iconic movie. And although he's played some wonderful characters like Kabir Khan in Chak De and Mohan Bhargav in Swades, I think that remains his most iconic role.
Thank you so much, Kaveri, for this conversation, and we wish you all the best. I also have a copy of the book right here with me. So, wishing you all the best for this book and waiting for your next one, which it's too early as yet. But thanks a lot, Kaveri, for this conversation.
Thank you very much, Priya.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.